I don't know, like when I just watched Frankenstein, like Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, and like what does Oscar Isaac say in that? Like, I never thought what would come after creation. And it's just like, thank you, Guillermo, thank you.
It's time for another episode of Best of the Tour. This is the show that takes you behind the scenes of your favorite gig posters, tour merch, and the artists who bring it all to life. Let's start the show.
Welcome back. This is episode number 10 of the Best of the Tour podcast. We're entitling this one Muses and Creatures and Skeletons. Oh my. This is an artist interview. I can't believe I'm saying it. I mean, it's incredible to welcome with extreme gratitude and thanks the one and only Miles Tsang. Miles, welcome to the pod.
Hi. Good to be here.
Miles, I'm going to get started here and just get personal with our audience and let them know that you are a incredible reason, if you will, for the reason that we collect. I mean, I don't really know how to phrase it better than that, but if there is a reason that we collect posters of a particular artist, of a genre, for a band, it's got Miles Tsang written all over it. I became familiar with Miles's work in and around probably the COVID time frame, and you were doing some pieces for the Dave Matthews Band as they did some drive-in series. And COVID was a difficult time for everybody, obviously, particularly, I think, the sort of solitude that it brought as we all kind of tried to figure out what life was like through this thing and on the other side.
And missing live music.
And there was this experience that the Dave Matthews Band put on with drive-in concerts through YouTube. It was like every Wednesday night. And it was a real carrot to look forward to as like a fan. And they dropped a couple posters aligned with that. And two of them were by you. And I would say we went from being minor poster collectors at that point to just like floodgates open. And we now have a room of Tsang in our house where we have all of the pieces you've done for Dave. And your work is just, it's incredible. I mean, I don't have any other word for it other than just incredible. Thanks for taking the time to sit down with us and chat.
No problem. And thanks for the incredibly kind words. That's a lot. That's really, really nice. Thank you.
Well, and one of the topics in the title, Muses, that is something that I particularly love. And with your work specifically, there's a few that are just my favorite. I'm a tattoo lady, so you also love to tattoo your beautiful muses as well. And so I find a commonality with that desire to look like these gorgeous, like tattooed ladies in your pieces of work. But the funny story that Mike and I wanted to talk about before we dive into everything is we'll put up some pictures of these what I call the Space Angels that you did for some Goose shows. That the story is that we collect Miles Tsang artwork for the Dave Matthews Band, but because Miles's body of work is so incredible, our walls would be wallpapered with your work if we had the opportunity to. We had to like selectively choose which bands that we were able to have on our walls. So I found Goose back in 2023. Mike did not, but we had seen these Space Angels. And Mike was like, wow, these are incredible. I was like, yeah, we don't collect Goose posters, babe. Like, sorry, we have to... we have to rein it back. But then I started listening to Goose. Mike started listening to Goose. And somehow, I don't even know, magically, before the holidays, I guess it was 2 years ago, you had a pair of your APs.
Might have been 3 years ago now.
23, yeah. So 2 years ago.
Okay.
Magically was able to get these pieces from your store for Mike, and these are two of our like prized Miles Tsang possessions. That being said, we now collect Miles Tsang Goose posters, so we're just kind of holding our breath waiting for some more at this point.
Yeah, they got to hire me again. That's all I can say.
All right, you go. Goose, listen up.
That's right.
But
this was a turning point for us in our collection.
Yes.
We'd seen work that you'd done, obviously, for 311, for Metallica, for Panic, for Pearl Jam, and it was just like, I would collect them all if I could. I really would. But we had to put restraints on, and there was a time where it was just Dave Matthews. But then, as we grew our catalog of who we kind of chase posters for, chase shows for.
Yeah.
And Erica got really into Goose is kind of how this all started. And then I started to listen as well. And when she was really in, we were going to shows, I was like, does this mean we can collect Goose posters now? And yeah, she snagged these for me from your shop. They arrived in the coveted poster tube with the red caps on the end. And it was like a Christmas morning that will
Constantly
just stay in my memory banks forever. If you're like me and Erica, you love passing out stickers while attending concerts with friends, making new friends. Where do you get these stickers? Look no further than stickerrobot.com. They are renowned for the highest quality sticker printing on the planet, world famous, custom outdoor silkscreen sticker printing, free US shipping, and we have a promo for you. If you visit stickerrobot.com/invisible, you will receive 10% off your next high quality screen printed sticker order. So act fast.
Going right now.
Right now.
Right now. And also, thanks to our friends over at the Rock Poster Society. If you don't know TRPS, they are a nonprofit behind the world's longest-running rock poster collection shows. That includes the Festival of Rock Posters in San Francisco, which is a bucket list thing for Mike and I to go to. They have been championing the art of poster for decades. They support both the artists and those people who collect them and preserve them. If you want to get involved, go over to trps.org if you want to become a member and check out their upcoming events.
Check them out. What can you tell us a little bit about some of your inspiration? I gave some title here, Miles. Those sort of central characters that I see reoccurring in a lot of your work. I know there's so much more, but I was just trying to kind of encapsulate, if I could, in 3 words. And what I came up with were muses, our favorite ladies that we see. And I think muses could be other than the female muse, but then certainly creatures and skeletons. And the creatures, I think, kind of covers a wide gambit of from dragons to foxes to billy goats to tigers. And then, of course, those skeletons that it's one of those icons that for different bands, maybe something more heavy, more rock and roll, more metal, all the way to the Grateful Dead, jam band, you can kind of fit skeletons in so many places. But I think the way that you do it just comes across in such a authentic and sort of anatomically correct manner. Like they seem very lifelike and realistic, for lack of a better word, because skeletons are not really alive, right? I mean, maybe sort of reanimated skeletons, but
depending on what universe and dimension you're living in.
Right. But talk to us a little bit about the inspiration there, maybe like where you got your start with it, and bring us up to speed on where you are now and what you're doing.
In terms of like those subjects?
Yeah, I think those subjects and just sort of how you find the inspiration for a piece and maybe decide to go in that sort of one direction or another. Because just to take, for example, DMB, like I've seen a lot of the series with the muses, the female muses, and sometimes they're a little closer up, sometimes they're a little farther out, but then a pivot in a completely different direction, to have like the diver from, I think it was Virginia Beach, and then you got this little sort of like hoverboat for Tampa, just kind of like how your process in selecting those subjects for different posters.
It kind of varies and kind of depends on the band and the occasion and all that kind of stuff. Like every poster is kind of like a balancing act between like what I observe the band to be at the moment, or like what I'm into about them at the moment, and so there's a balance of like the band, what they bring, and also what they allow, if there's like art direction on their end, and then also like what the fans might want. Like I do kind of prioritize a sort of like for lack of a better term, like a kind of pop appeal. Like I always want to do or select subjects that I think will sell, or that I think people will just find pleasant or pleasurable to just like look at or just like have on their wall for whatever reason. That's the hope anyway. And then also just my own proclivities, or like what I'm into at the moment, what I'm into that month or the last few months, or kind of what's going on. And those can be pretty blatant, or those can be like a little bit granular and kind of like impermeable, or like it wouldn't even really make sense if I talked about it exactly. Or it could be something just really, really just like random, or just like, oh yeah, I'll just do that. Like the muses, the series for Dave Matthews Band. I think that I started doing, like, I think the first poster I did for them was like that Stingray thing for Tampa, I think. And that one was just because, like, it's like I illustrate the band as these like little wavy beings of energy or whatever that are kind of going through like Florida. Basically, it's kind of like a big it's like a big mishmash of like elements that I associate with that like climate and that area. And the band is visiting through in that, and that's kind of as deep as that one is. And I was just, and then also at the time, and even now, I like to draw little like glowing elements because it just adds visual interest. It's also little white spots that I can apply glow in the dark ink or let foil show through. So and so that's like a printer kind of a thing, like almost a production thing that I like keep in mind. Maybe it's not realistic that there's that many fireflies there, but I just want them there because it looks cool.
But it's a beautiful piece, the one that you're talking about. And this was the first one that you did for DMB. It was down in Florida, I think. Was it Tampa area? And yeah, you have the sort of the Stingray in there. And also it kind of almost has this other way to look at it. And I don't know if you intended this or not, but because I've spent a lot of time looking at that piece, but it's like a Stingray with a couple sort of like little stingrays above it. But if you look at it from afar, it also kind of looks like it could be like the face of a raccoon. You kind of like, it's like one of those
like a Rorschach.
A Rorschach, yeah. But I love the little energy guys on the fan boat going through the Everglades and how they are representative of sort of each band member with their instruments, and just a really clever piece and way to depict, I think, what we the fans kind of feel when we're at a show, which is a lot of energy.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing. Like, it's just I didn't really know how to draw them exactly or represent them, other than to just at that time draw them like that as like being energy. I was kind of on that wave at that time. I think 2016, 2017, I think. And then to keep going down that line, like I think the next one was the diver one for Virginia. I'm pretty sure Virginia Beach.
Like iconic piece for the band.
And this is one of those Dave Matthews Band grail pieces that people search for. You always see like ISOs out in the, the fan boards looking for it, because it is such an iconic piece that just captured the hearts of the collectors. And, again, a lot of these are like water-based, Florida, Everglades, Virginia Beach, Atlantic Ocean. And so there's a lot of like movement and elements to it. That's one of the things that Mike and I, when we talk about your work, there's a lot of like beautiful movement. You caught me from when you said, when I think of it from like the printing perspective, it's like your brain has to work backwards from the way it's going to look before it's even designed almost. It's like this unbelievable way to have your brain work to say like, how will this look when it gets printed, which I just think is like incredible.
I think that's just like something that happens over time, though. I definitely think about that a little bit more now, and I don't even think of it exactly in that way. Now I just think of like, if I'm working on a thing and then it's like, this, like the ink is covered all of this, there's like no white space, then there's not going to be much room for that like balance to come through. So that's like a question of just like kind of pictorial balance and stuff. And then I can just like, I can apply a mask so that like some parts can come through or not, or I can like render out so that there's like more highlight on one part or whatever. So it's kind of just like work. It's kind of everything that I do. It's kind of like a push and a pull, like I'm always like, I never actually know what something is going to look like until I've done it. That's kind of one of the things that like keeps it interesting for me, like process and kind of just incrementally growing and like trying new little things here and there. Like I don't really take like huge swings on from one thing or another. Like you're not going to see me like try to break like a watercolor painting into a screen print or something of like I don't know, some subject that I've never done before exactly. Like you're probably not going to see that, but you will see, as you've seen all those ladies, if you actually line them up chronologically. I could tell you like, like I wanted to do like another muse or another like pretty lady, but this time I want to make sure that this part is like tuned in, or this time I want to try this, or like or like you were just talking about those Goose posters. Like literally at that time, like I hadn't been listened to a lot of Goose at that time. I just knew that they were a trancey kind of like jam band that has like a very, I don't know, to me the music felt like a little bit ethereal and floaty, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so literally that was just the vibe that I went with. I was like, oh, I do ladies for jam bands, and this one is particularly floaty, and these are the state symbols, this, that, and the third. And like, I really want to do real good tattoos this time. Like, I really want to draw like some sharp, cool tattoos and really prioritize that. And in the printing, I want to make sure that like it comes through cool, and that like, you know, the layers it looks like it looks like blue ink on skin, you know, or at least more so than I had been able to achieve before, you know. So it's like little incremental like additions and things I'm trying like that. And at the time I picked up some new Air Force Ones. So that's why they're wearing Air Forces.
Well,
I love Air Force Ones. I've worn them since I was a kid. They're still a great shoe. And that was one of the things the store, you mentioned push-pull, and it's a little bit of that contrast. This is, I think you would consider it a diptych. Yes. I mean, these were sort of two pieces. There was, I think, an uncut version. This takes me down a whole other tangent about the way that you choose to do variants of your pieces, which I think is legendary. Like, I think, you know, we see a lot of foil, or, okay, there's a rainbow foil, a white swirl foil here or there, but then you'll take things and you'll change the ink on some of them. And there's a version, and hot take for anybody listening who hasn't been to Miles' website, the blue variants of the Space Angels, I think, are still available. And by think, I mean no, because I look at it almost daily and have to talk myself out of buying an additional copy of the same poster in a different variant. But I think your choice of changing the color tones can actually do that to a collector, say that I could actually own multiple of these. But being that it's a diptych, you chose to sort of have this continuity of the Space Angels, but then, like you said, the Air Force Ones versus maybe a Converse type inspired sneaker, which we found it to be really cool because I think that's a nod to Rick Midarotunda, the lead singer of Goose, who frequently wears Converse. And then you chose one Space Angel to have sort of a semi-hollow body electric guitar, which again is what the lead singer of Goose plays, and then another Angel to have an acoustic guitar. Goose at the time was breaking out into this acoustic band called Arebelo, and they've done some other things called acoustic lately. And so just picking up on those elements and that like attention to detail, it just really felt like you were doing your homework, and or I think like kind of maybe getting in the vibe of Goose. You mentioned that sort of ethereal, floaty kind of music.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, because like I do remember actually like looking into their gear and their guitars, and sometimes I do that if a character in a poster has like an instrument and it's like pretty prominent. There's usually a reason why, you know, because like I don't know, I just don't want to just do something just to do something all the time. I don't know. I'm not consistent though, so I can't really, you know, tell people one way or the other every single time. But I do remember wanting to represent that guitar there. But I will say again, like everything isn't entirely plotted out. Like I'm pretty sure that like I illustrated one figure one way and another as the other, more just to differentiate them than to actually have like their clothes have any one particular meaning. Like I know that like the one with like her that's really leggy, like the one that's showing her legs. She also has like a Letterman jacket with leather arms, you know. And like I really, similar with the tattoos, I was like, okay, like I really need to lock in on the drapery. I want that like arm to look sick. And like I remember there, I actually figured out how to render that like gradation of like, and how to layer the inks in my style so that like it came through and it actually pops pretty decently. I remember, compared to like the drapery or the clothing or the rendering on like those things in other posters where like where it doesn't always look exactly like the material. I'm always like trying to get more verisimilitude.
This particular one, we're lucky we have it in the foil variant. And like when I say that there are just pops and things that we start to notice as just passerby. And this is the thing I love most about your work, is because you can sit with it and you could see it from like the face value and be like, okay, I see. Oh yeah, Chucks, just like Rick's Chucks. And like, you know, what did I find the other day that like blew my mind? And now I'm like, it was
maybe the red bird in the tattoo.
Well, so it was a few things. So their new album came out. It was called Chain Your Dragon. And she has a dragon tattoo on her leg. And I was like, oh my gosh, Miles is savant. He had futuristic.
In our household, you're also prophetic, Miles.
Yes, you're very prophetic. But there was that. There's also she has a tattoo with Red Bird, which is a song that Goose there's a song called Red Bird from Goose. And so like the attention to detail to me in what I would consider as a fan collecting for Easter eggs is just you can sit with something. And I mean, like I said, we've had these posters for years. And then Train Your Dragon comes out, and I'm like, Dragon's tattoo. And they've talked about dragons for years. And my next tattoo will be a dragon. It's like, it's all happening, you know? But it really, as like for us to be able to sit with something, and I think that's the beauty of one of the things of many that we love about your work is like you can sit with something and see it and then come back to it and you see something else and come back to it and see something else. And it reveals more of the story, or because now you're talking about the jacket and you're talking about the tattoos and the layers, and I'm like, okay, time to sit with it again. And that I think is the thing that keeps you coming for us, keeps me coming back to your work. I mean, I could go on and on about this particular piece, but there's other ones as well of the Muses that just, one of my favorite ones is you did one for Chicago, Huntington Island, Northerly Island, and it was we call her Daphne because she's Daphne, like the plant queen. Then there's a beautiful sculpture garden out there on Northerly Island. Mike and I were lucky enough to actually go to Chicago for the first time this summer to see Goose there. And it was really very cool to now have connections, not just across, the bands, but like now having multiple posters that connect Northerly Island as well. But she's one of my favorites because I'm a plant lady, and I was like, love it.
Yeah, me too recently. Actually, around that time is when I started to get into plants myself. So that's another reason why like I selected that and like and why I prioritized like so many leaves and like that's such a green poster.
Yes.
Like if you notice actually, like that's another thing, like flowers and vegetation over time. If you go back my work, like I think maybe other people feel differently, but I think that like my plants and vegetation and flowers and florals and all that have just been like getting better and better as I've learned how to illustrate them better, or just how to like go about layering things more. And yeah, I think that was kind of like a piece where I really, really pushed that one because I was really into plants at the time, and it just felt like a good chance to do that, So again, trying to better things incrementally, and I think that you can feel the fun that I have, which is what I hope.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one of the things too, just as we've done, I think, a number of your posters that we've kind of reviewed or looked at on our other podcast called Posters in Every Direction, where we've kind of sat with a piece and we'll analyze it. And one of the things that we come across, I want to say in every one of your pieces, I mean, nearly all of them for Dave. I mean, there's one for Dave that was a little different, but we even commented on why that looks the way it was, sort of your second diver that you did for him. But what I'm getting at is the lettering that you use, the choice in sort of calligraphy to design the name of the band for the piece that you're in. And again, I'm pointing at the references that I have. If you're looking at us on camera, you see me looking around our room. I'm looking at pieces live and in person, but we could go through your whole catalog, and I think we'll see this for Fish. I know there was one you did in your current hometown, Toronto, right? They were there with the CN Tower. But that attention to detail that you bring, and not just like the detail, but the creativity around lettering the band's name, I have felt like for years that you are the absolute GOAT, if you will, of lettering band names on posters. I mean, I love, again, obviously, gush all over your style and everything, but just to pick one element, I think the way that you take time and care to craft and say, how am I going to make the Dave Matthews Band name look different in this poster as opposed to the 3 other ones or 4 or 9 other ones I've done. And each time it's so creative and so different that I feel like you could take that as an excerpt from the piece and put it on another poster, put it on merch, a t-shirt, a hat, and it would sell just as well or better. And it's so special. There are a couple of them, and this is a true story, swear to God. I've looked at them. In fact, I'm looking at one right now. It was a Charlottesville piece that you did for the Dave Matthews Band with the lady in the moon. If that rings a bell. And the way that you did the Dave Matthews Band lettering, it makes it look like this 70s, like, hard rock band with like angel wings and a rainbow. I was like, if I was to get a tattoo of the Dave Matthews Band, that's what it would be. It would be the way that you lettered that. And that's how just incredible and creative, I think, your work is around the naming. The one that I mentioned that was a little different was this Diver 2.0 that you did down in West Palm last year, I think it was. And it was more of like a front and center guy. And it looks like he's kind of taking a picture underwater
Like it's
Yeah.
National
at
Geographic.
us. But then we were like, yeah, it was like a throwback to like the National Geographic magazine cover that we would look at when we were kids. At least that's what I got from it. And I was like, that's even clever because it's just sort of lettered, very basic Dave Matthews Band. But that's how it would appear if it was in like a photo journal or an oceanic journal or something like that. So
I didn't even make that connection that would be appropriate for that. I think that one in particular was just kind of in reaction to all the other like posters I've done up to that point, because like you're describing very generously that like there's a lot of like kind of calligraphic and gestural kind of like big kind of very movementy kind of things. And I just thought that like, okay, like I'm doing another Diver. Okay, I don't want to do the Diver a little bit different, and like I want like other elements to feel notably more different. And also I think that one at the time was a case of like work smarter than harder.
yes.
Because some posters also like are a little bit like that, because I'm usually like working on 1 to 3 things at once. And sometimes if a deadline is closing in or what have you, then like I will have to implement something like that. And again, it just happens to work because I've done all these calligraphic logos before, and then this one just stands out a little bit more. And I also like think that one in particular, like the composition, it's pretty like, as you're saying, like straightforward. The shapes are pretty like, they're pretty like uncomplicated,
Yep.
And I say, and I don't say that as, and I don't say that as like a bad thing. To me, that's something that I've come to learn over time, that like horror vacui or like just filling things up to fill things up isn't always the way. That's like that's a maturation thing. I didn't always, I knew that, but I didn't always feel it implement that. And I am now, as I mature, hopefully, I'm trying to do better with that, and to, just kind of let things breathe sometimes, or just like, I'm still going to be obsessive over every element, and I'm still going to fill in as many gaps as I can and kind of give you as much as I can with every piece. But sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't have to go too crazy, because like that breathability will, it'll be a contrast to the madness. Like that's also happening in there,
Does that kind of happen on a piece? Does that kind of happen on a piece by piece basis for you, where you kind of get that feeling as you're in it and just kind of like, yeah, that's it. It's done. It's a little simpler this time. I don't need to kind of.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm trying to like lean into that, because it used to be so stressed. Like a lot of my, like earlier in life, I would put so much pressure on myself to be like, okay, I need to be like a warrior in this, like, the loudness wars, when everything was like blown out in like production for like a while there. Like I remember like there was a time once gig post, I mean, even now to a degree, but I remember everybody was just trying to have more lines, just more details, more of this, just a cram full of stuff. And like, I still do that to an extent, but like, I try to do that now with more purpose, or with more like intention, I guess, because I'm just trying not to put all that much pressure on myself. Like not every piece needs to be more detailed than the last. It can just be kind of like, it can be as detailed as I can be at that moment, but then, maybe there's something else interesting about it, like in the meaning of some of the imagery, or the choice to even like select certain kinds of things, and just kind of let them be as they are. Like there's a few that I've tried to do that with this year in particular.
Well, one of the things I love is when you share your kind of like warp speed videos on how you create the pieces of work. And the one that I like is most recent in my mind is the one from the Grateful Dead, the Grateful Dead 60 out in Golden Gate Park that just recently they just had back this summer. And you had a triptych that you were able to do. And when I like say that it broke my brain in so many ways. One, to just from the time, I believe you said it was over 60 hours, maybe even more, to create that.
It was more than that for that one. Like that, like I think that like if I don't remember how much I put there, I feel like that'd be like I don't remember what I put there, but like it's always longer than like than the time that I put on there, because that's just like the amount of screen time that I was able to record. And I sometimes forget to hit record, or I don't count like the sketching time beforehand or the negotiation, or if there's any other post-processing that I need to do. Like, it's just literally like, that's the amount of time that I spent that you see there. That's like the drawing that's sped up to, as you say, like just a minute, because we all lead busy lives. And I just need to get the point across that, like, hey, I did this.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about that. I know this is a big hot topic in the industry, and feel free to share or not share as much as you like, but I think that sort of like nod to the community, or that demonstration to the community. Number one, I enjoy it as a fan and collector to just see behind the scenes in the process. But I heard you say it's a little bit of like, hey, here's some evidence that I actually drew this, which to me lends an ear towards this larger debate around artificial intelligence right now that we're hearing in the industry, like AI and the sort of the threat of AI for everything. I mean, in our day jobs, there's threats there. In the things that we love and collect, there's threats there. We're believers, just so that the like-minded folks you're talking to, that this stuff, I mean, it has no place, in our opinion, really, in the gig poster scene. I think to try to have AI that replaces or somehow mimics artists just sort of misses the point. It like defeats the purpose, in that what we as fans and collectors are most interested in is that sort of soul in the artwork. It's that new perspective by the artist that we love, that we've come to know, that does a take on a band that we're paying money to go and see. And so like this concept that a band, and I'm not naming any names, just generally anybody might try to increase their profit margin somehow by just hitting a whizzy-watsy on the computer and print it out like an AI program, and then try to pass on sell it. To me, it's missing a point. It would be icky beyond icky, but it's really not understanding your core audience. And so I'm as anti AI in the sort of gig poster space as one could be. But that being said, not asking for anybody else to adopt my opinion, but what are you kind of seeing in that space, Miles, and what are your thoughts?
Well, number one, I have always documented my process. Like, I feel like actually when I started out, that was one of the things that gave me a bit of a boost coming up. Like, when I started doing gig posters like full time in 2012, you can actually go to my website. I may have taken it down, but like it might still be out there. I can turn it back on. But there are blog posts from like, I think 2012 or 2011 until like maybe 2016, 2017, where I documented every single poster I did, from concept to sketch to illustration. And this is also during the period where I was also doing all of my own printing, which I'm not anymore. So yeah, I tried to make myself like the one-stop shop for like the Toronto area, basically. Like, you want to cross the border and like hit one of the biggest cities in Canada, I will be your stop for like sick imagery that like you can also pay me to print, and I can print up to several hundred of them, whatever. And I was able to service like small to medium-sized bands at that time pretty well, and that was kind of like, those are kind of the grind years where I really didn't like that's a lot of work, doing the actual work, doing all of the printing, and then also documenting all of it. This was like before the big like tech pivot to video, and which is when like I kind of like stopped, because I think around that time I started to hear people just say also that like, oh, it's cool that he documents everything, but it's the same thing every time. And I was like, you know what? True. I don't need to write a whole blog post every time. So I kind of let that go for a while. But like, that's when I think I migrated more to Instagram, and that's when I would show more clips, previews here and there. Everybody's doing that. But yeah, over the last few years, I've started to do like full time lapses. I forget where I got, I think I got the idea from like those Procreate time lapses that are automatically generated on the iPad, because like you can just spit that out real easy and people just do that. And I wanted to do that with like my posters, but I don't draw on the iPad. I can't get into it. Like, I need like a full like Wacom setup with everything like that. I'm just used to that. So anyway, that's that on that. Like, I've been doing it forever, and this is kind of just an extension of that. And it just kind of is like a happy happenstance that it does offer like verification in these increasingly like artificial and like what's even real times that we live in. But on the topic of AI, which I don't even like to think of it as like artificial intelligence, because that's like what they're shooting for. They're shooting for general artificial intelligence. They're shooting to create a sentient being to then enslave. That's what it is. You know,
Problematic.
if you think I think of it as like automated intelligence.
Yeah.
Because what they're really doing is just dumping billions and now trillions of dollars, attempting to, into this number generator whose entire purpose is to basically take any economically viable activity and automate it so that workers and laborers can be cut out of the equation. And I don't like that. I respect workers. I respect blue-collar people. I come from that. And here's a quote that I'll just quote. Remember, everybody, the true purpose of AI is to allow wealth to access skill without allowing skill to access wealth. Just remember that.
Yeah. That's a phenomenal quote.
It is.
Yeah. And even like to get, not to get political or whatever, even like all of this, it's hurting all of us. Like right now, these companies that are like pushing all of this, that are hyping all of this up, like I said, they're dumping trillions into they're dumping trillions into things. All these companies are now just forced by, like, through centrifugal force, it feels like, just being drawn into this like capitalistic hype cycle that is just about like anybody that hops on can maybe make money, maybe, But right now, I think that, what's the stat now? Like out of the S&P 500, like I think only 7 or 10 companies are now holding up like a third of the American economy.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's about right. Yeah. And it's
So,
something that I have an art history background. And so my degree is in art history, and I studied it from, Renaissance through, all the way to modern art. And that was where I really had a specialization in. And I think Mike and I would talk about this from the consumer perspective through the lens of art, is that it feels like there is absolutely something that's generated through the AI algorithms, because it's essentially stealing content and art and styles from humans that have created these beautiful pieces of art to then amalgamate them into something else. It lacks what Mike said earlier, soul.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the thing. I'm hoping that as consumers in the art world, because that's what we are, gig posters are 100% a type of art that we collect and that we prioritize in our home. We have a lot of people who come over and they're like, "Gosh, you guys have a lot of concert posters." I'm like, "Yeah, Susie, you got a lot of,
Yes.
Monets, printed
Right.
Monets on the wall. Like, same. It's sick. Like, our house is awesome." But we know that when we go to the merch booth and we buy a piece of artwork that was created by an artist,
or from the
AP sales, we know that like our dollars are going directly to the humans who spent thousands and thousands of hours creating and cultivating a craft that I truly believe, and this is my like own optimistic mindset, is that like it will never be able to be truly replicated by the artificial means out there. Hopefully, at least for me as a consumer.
What Miles was getting to was like this attempt to create sentient, right? It comes with other moral dilemma complications.
Yeah, but people don't want to think about that. They're just like, yeah, but like, what if we could like create this thing that was as smart as humans and that did everything and was like emotional and had everything that defines humanity, but like we just didn't need to like pay them or worry about like what they want at all. We can just turn them off and on whenever we want to just do whatever we want, and like that feels like prison. That feels like slavery to me.
Right. And it always ends badly. Watch any James Cameron movie, watch any Matrix, always ends badly.
Yeah, and if you want to get into the pop culture like loop of it all, like these dumbasses that are actually like pushing all of this stuff. And I don't mean like the people on the ground who are just like, "Oh, what's AI? This. I mean like the people who are like writing the books that are like giving Sam Altman like his juice. Like these people are just like nerds who are reading like 60s and 70s fiction, and they're just basing all of it like on that. And there's just enough removes, and people don't read or like care enough. I don't even want to say that. Like it's inaccessible. Like it's just not common to like think about that, because all you see are these market benefits that people are just pushing, quote unquote, and like I don't know. I just don't like it. And I'm not going to like shit on everybody unilaterally who just like uses it or plays with it, because like I understand, you want to be the first mover, the shaker, this, that, and the third. And like, who knows, maybe we're wrong and there is some revolution that like is beyond all of this. Maybe Sam Altman, when he does get his $1 trillion like government bailout, maybe that'll be a good thing. you know. um
There could be abundance for all in it, but at the same time,
maybe.
I mean, look, there's a part of me that's like, would it be cool to hang out with C3PO and R2D2 and have a conversation? Yes. But at the end of the day,
That's Star Wars.
they were acquired from Jawas, who were basically junk dealers or traders of
Yeah.
sentient life in the desert to work on moisture evaporators so that Luke could go into Tashi Station and pick up power converters. Like, it's the same, and it's not a happy life for C3PO is my point.
Yeah, and that's fine again in the confines of fiction where you don't actually where it exists within that 90 to whatever how many minutes time frame or however many sequels or whatever. Like those are our windows into that world. But if you're going to bring that into our world where we exist, where we perpetuate, I'm sorry, but you need to think further than 90 minutes or further than I don't know, when I just watched Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, and what does Oscar Isaac say in that? I never thought what would come after creation. And it's just thank you, Guillermo, thank you.
Well said. This is well timed. This is really a revamp of Frankenstein's monster, but this is supposedly pretty on par with the novel. This is on my next watch list. It's coming up, but that's a well timed sort of commentary on where we are, even though that's dealing with reanimation of human parts as opposed to
right.
AI
But what I understand and hear Miles saying is sort of we have this sort of push right now to go, adapt. I've heard it say something like humans with AI are gonna, surpass humans without AI. And that's just another sort of talking point to try to elicit us right now who are maybe a little bit more skeptical about it to be like, oh no, you have to do it this way. I think I'm hoping, because I'm finding myself just in my generation, we're raised in the 80s, kids of the 80s and 90s. I'm finding that I want to return back to things like we talked about plants. Don't ask Mike how many plants we have. Sometimes he's like, is that new? I don't know where that came from.
A lot.
But I've
getting 5 things right now.
Same. I'll have to see if I can send. Oh, I don't know if I can send them across the border because you're up in Canada. They don't like when you send things across the border.
They used to be fine with it. We don't need to get political.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
But
we can. In fact, I would not mind. In fact, right. One of my posters this year is about that.
That's right. But I think from that, I am finding the things that I want to spend my time, my free time on, are returning to things that are simple, that I can do with my hands, that are real, tangible, that are not on a screen, because we spend so much time on the screens, and it returns me back to this concept of paper. My kids don't have books for school. They do everything on a computer. I am a big reader. I prefer to read paperback books or hardback books, physical paper. There is an energy exchange when we, I think, interact with something that is not technical or mechanical, that there's something about hands in the dirt when you're propagating and you're replanting your plants. There's something about going to the merch stand, and when you get that paper, sometimes you just smell it a little bit because, there's that smell of the ink on paper. And then there's the tactical piece of, especially now we see a lot of artists doing different prints on different types of paper. We've seen different, full-on color papers and things of that nature. But I hope, and maybe this is, again, optimistic Erica mindset, is that there is almost a return to the basics and the simplicity and the things that we cannot create on the computer. If you have the skill set to be able to make your food out of the ground from a garden, that you can draw with pen and paper, pencils, I think there might be a anti-tech renaissance, maybe.
There is a little bit of that. I mean, we're seeing, was it last year or the year before? It was the first time since 1970 something or 1980 something that records, vinyl records, have outsold CDs or cassettes or anything.
Yeah.
Because they had kind of gone extinct, and now there's this whole vinyl revolution. And both of our kids, we have a son who's almost 17 and a daughter who's 12, and both of them are into vinyl music. And it's been this interesting observation because that's a tangible, form of music, whereas up until that point, they really only had streaming.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
for
that's
them, this concept of like, you can hold an album cover in your hands and you open it up and there's like things to explore and discover. It is this sort of analog kind of, renaissance.
I do think that that's like a big part of things. You mentioned like streaming, right? Like, what's the saying that's going around now? You'll own nothing and be happy. I think that there is something to like people getting interested in like collecting and like tactility and physical media and all these things, because I don't know, you could just live in a fucking IKEA shoebox and just be streaming everything, and like, you could do that. That's efficient, and you're saving, and you're doing all this, that, and the third, right? You spend like $10 a month or 50, whatever it is, on Spotify. You can own the whole world, but you won't really own anything. You'll have access, but you won't really own anything. And I do think that as long as we I think, maybe it's a little woo-woo, but like, I do think that as long as we are like human beings that occupy physical bodies, there will always be something to like tactility and like physical touch and like just things existing in the reality that we can perceive with our senses, that isn't so intellectual or technological or removed. And for a time, I think that like even those latter things were like, we embrace them, and we do embrace them now. Like, they're so ubiquitous, right? But I think that, amongst people who are mindful, especially who knew what life was like before these things, there's definitely like a counter movement or like a desire amongst people that like know that, or people who are learning that. You see Gen Z kids now who are like, oh my God, here's a tape deck, or like, or like a whole like, I would have never thought that people didn't know who Metallica was, but apparently Stranger Things introduced like the entire Gen Z to Master of Puppets, and I was like, wow, I'm old. But also just like, and like I see kids just being like, yo, like playing guitar.
Yeah.
And or like drawing, even if, they're quote unquote not good at it or whatever, but like, it doesn't matter. Like, being quote unquote good doesn't matter except in a market sense, like, I'm not going to say like, I'm not trying to be good at what I do or whatever, right? Like, I'm a professional and I make money off of this, that, and the third. But like, I do think that there's something to kind of like divorcing yourself from that and just doing something to do something, just enjoying the moment. I think that that's what locks us into like why I'm such an admirer of like other artists and like performers, because I don't know what they're going to do. And like, that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's like when you go to a live show and you go, and a jam band in particular, where you're just like, oh, I've heard all these songs on record, but like, how are they going to play it? Like, are they going to segue into one thing or the other? How's that going to make me feel? Are they going to solo this? Are they going to like put that in there? Are they going to switch instruments? Are they going to like throw down and just play like B-sides? I don't know.
100%. It makes we talk about this a lot about like, investing in those experiences, because they are these sort of like,
that's what you take with you.
Yeah. Once in a blink that you hit it. We were fortunate enough, we're going to go for the third year in a row. Goose does a event called Goose Miss, which you've probably heard of. We were at the one last year in Charleston, South Carolina, and they did this whole theme around bingo. And what they did was, and I don't know if you've seen this, Miles, but you would love this. They decided they were going to draw bingo balls with the name of the songs on them, and then show the band.
That's sick.
Yeah, they're playing
as the set list
mid-song,
was being created as they're playing.
And so it was, and they didn't know what was coming. They had to find their way to transition to the next song. They did this for 2 nights back to back.
Yeah.
And it was sick. I mean, just so incredible. And then this is the part, you can check it on YouTube. They just did a making of. These guys could have totally phoned this in and just said, we need some type of digital backdrop that just shows you a bingo ball being drawn. No, they went to like a fabricator with their people that they know. They built a 30-foot tall operating bingo wheel that they loaded with giant rubber bouncy balls. And this is what they pulled out. And exactly what you were just explaining, that's that analog sort of renaissance, right? This is the thing that you can't get enough of, because you don't know what's going to happen next. And that feeling, that energy, man, there's nothing like it. It was just, it's awesome.
And to like loop it back into what I do and what I said earlier, that's why like I don't really know what I do. Like I don't really know exactly how something is gonna like look from start to finish. Like I generally know, and like for the sake of clients, especially like these days that I'm working with like bigger bands and stuff that are a little bit more strict with like what is and isn't allowed, or like being sensitive to changes. Like I will try to be a little bit more accurate, but I still don't know how it's going to look. Is this element going to be like, I don't know, more highlighted? Like how's that going to look when it's colored? Like is this going to be more dark or light, or like or you know, for bands that like give me a little bit more leeway, I can be like, you know what, there's like a blank spot there, I'm just going to draw this whole other thing in there, you know, and like I didn't plan that, you know. Or even like sometimes if there are edits that need to be done, then that changes it too, like, and I didn't know that, and I don't know, that's interesting, you know. It keeps it fresh for me. Like again, I imagine these bands that are playing like the same thing like every night, like I think that there's a joy and kind of an ascendancy that comes when you can figure out how to do the same thing but like new again. And maybe it's not new to everybody, but it's new to you. And like if you really feel that and you work towards that and you kind of make that your thing, I think the people feel that, or at least your people feel that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So in a way, you're kind of like the jam band of gig posters, because I get that from your work. Like it is that flow that, I mean, when you said sometimes you don't even know where it's going, it is always something fresh and unique and amazing. Really, I mean, that's what I feel when I see your work. So it's a way of saying thank you, Miles, for all that you do. I mean, especially in this crazy world with all of the things that are seemingly trying to, you know, change. I think we need this more than ever, as humans, as fans of music, as fans of art, to have that kind of creative freshness. From the bottom of my heart, seriously, thank you, for all that you do. What can you tell us about anything coming up in the near future, in the maybe turn of the year in 26? And if you can't share, we understand. Any cool projects or anything on the horizon?
I can't really share anything specific other than just to say that I'm just doing what I've always done, and I'm just going to keep grinding out like gig posters that I hope are incrementally cooler than like last year in different ways. This year in particular, I don't know if we haven't had time to really get into specific pieces, but like I have tried to like improve or just like inject more personal meaning or personal narrative into things, as well as like the technical stuff. Like you mentioned the Grateful Dead 60 print. Those Grateful Dead prints that I did, the three of them this year, if you look at my previous work and you look at that, know that I really am trying to work on perspective.
Well,
Like
the
that's one of the
one
reasons why I
for
that's one of the reasons why I like doing like aquatic stuff or oceanic kind of imagery so much, just because I don't need to worry about perspective as much.
I was going to ask.
I can just flow, you know.
yeah, well, because that's what it'd be like when you're underwater
Right.
with, you know, the fishes and like the animals and the bubbles. Like that's one thing that I love
Yeah.
most about your
Okay.
treatment of water is that there's always this kind of like bubbly flow to it that just feels, it feels there's like a liquidity to it, or like a
Movement.
viscosity movement to it, which is just brilliant on paper to be able to be like, that's what it would look like when I'm in the water. Like that's
Yeah.
what it would feel like. I can feel it by looking at it, which is just beyond me. The Grateful Dead piece, like you did one for the Sphere. So you had three this just this year. The Sphere, Grateful Dead 60.
I think
Yeah.
two of them were the Sphere, and then one was for San Francisco.
Yeah. The one for San Francisco bends my mind when you talk about perspective because first of all, it's like if Where's Waldo lived in
It,
the 1960s, did a couple hits of acid and like figured out like, oh, I'm going to go to this Grateful Dead show because looking at it, it's got unbelievable attention to detail and elements of obviously like the Grateful Dead and their iconography. Like out the wazoo, but it also gives such a like a it's like a love letter to San Francisco as well. So you could be a not Grateful Dead fan, but also take a look at this piece and know like there is just like I said, that's what it sounds like a love letter to San Francisco with
yeah.
the Golden Gate Bridge and the Rainbow Row houses. I think of it from like
Well, they're doing
Full
that
House, but
right, Full House. That's right, and they're doing the whole thing in the Sphere experience, I think, too, where I've seen them almost like you're floating up in a hot air balloon over sort of this shot.
But if you go, like you said, it's like there's the group of these unbelievable skeletons that are like, it's like they're running for the rail. Like that's what I think of. Like they're running to go get front row seats to the show, but then everything kind of is like in this like distance, and almost like I've seen people do those pieces where they like the videos where they zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, and then it becomes another piece of artwork, and then it zooms in and zooms in. That's what this
Bobby
piece
Chick
kind of,
special.
yeah. That's what it reminds me of, in a way that just bends my brain to be like, how you even came up with that and then had the ability to create that distance perspective in the piece of paper.
Yeah.
Bends my brain in ways I can't.
It took a while, that's all. It just took a long time. And yeah, that piece in particular is definitely essentially a love letter to San Francisco, featuring some Grateful Dead iconography. I actually was told not to include like every bit of Grateful Dead lore or whatever. If you notice, there's no like, I don't think there's turtles. There's not that many. I think there's like one turtles. There's one Terrapin station with the turtles, but like I was instructed to like lay out the flying eyeballs, no Jerry. Like there were a few other things too, and like I wanted to make it even more dense, believe it or not. But like they were like, just keep it to skeletons, and so that's why that one in particular, it's more San Francisco than like the preceding piece. Like I'm literally being like, I visited San Francisco. What do people do there? They like to be outdoors. They like to walk. They like to jog. There's so many dogs. It's great. So yeah, I just tried to kind of incorporate like that, more so than. It's cool that like you got the vibe of like of them like rushing and like being behind the rail and stuff. But yeah, in my mind, those skeletons are just chilling. They're just existing and just enjoying each other's company.
But that's the thing. It's like I say when we go see live music and get the excitement of going and waiting in the poster line, one, because it's like this, what are they going to do next? What we've been talking about through this whole conversation, because again, oftentimes sometimes we see the poster like a little bit beforehand. There's a little bit of like a sneak peek or a drop online, but sometimes we don't know until we literally get up to the merch booth and we're like, oh shit, oh my God, it's Miles Tsang. We're like, and then, everyone's losing their minds about it.
The hardest thing is when we're not at the show, right? For a band like DMB or Goose that we collect, and then it drops and it's one of your pieces. And then there's this spike of adrenaline and anxiety that I get immediately. That's like, I'm so excited. There's another Miles Tsang. Oh my God, how am I going to get this? And then it's immediate like, okay, focus, Mike. Who's at the show that we know? Texts immediately start going out. And so shout out to my buddy Jay, friends of ours, Jerica and Jay, who were actually this summer at Noblesville, also known as Deer Creek. And literally this moment happens. Another Dave Matthews Band poster by Miles in your ongoing series that you refer to as sort of the Muses or the Divine Feminine. Fortunately, my good friend, and we poster buddy for each other in different spots and catch up whenever we can. But my buddy Jay was like, I'm here. I've got you a foil secured. We're good. And I was like on Easy Street. I felt so relieved. And so we have that up on the wall as a part of our collection. And this is my specific question for you, Miles, on this. If you can, this is exciting to me, where it says this piece continues my Divine Feminine Muses series for the Dave Matthews Band, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it specifically says continues, Miles. It does not say concludes. So am I reading that correctly, that there's a chance, a possibility that the Muses series could, in theory, continue into the future?
Yeah. I'm not just going to stop drawing pretty ladies just for no reason. Unless I just get like a heaping of like a whole load of criticism that like is somehow warranted, which I don't think it would be, or just like they just like stop selling entirely, But I don't think that happens.
Well, if you go,
it's a safe bet.
Yeah, if you go to your website and go to your shop, consistently the lovely ladies and the muses are always sold out. Same with like Queens of Stone Age, same with your Metallica prints. Like there is a consistency to looking through your shop and trying to be like, oh, I would love to get something. We've talked about this on the podcast, as we're coming into the holiday season. And I think as maybe in the instance of let's try to support our artists instead of going to the big commercial boxes and things of that nature, to go look at our artists' shops to see what potentially may be available, and shop for your loved ones and support the artists that you love
Directly through their
through
website.
their websites. Your website's very easy to find, www.milessang.com. And you can go to the 3 bars in the upper right corner and go to the shop and see what may be available. Anything that maybe could be coming out to, wet the whistle of those who are looking to shop. If you've got any AP drops coming up or any art prints that maybe you've been working on.
Art prints are just kind of like holstered, like they're on the list, but like I haven't had time to really like work on any new ones, that aren't just like converting or get like an old gig poster into an art print. A few of those are locked and loaded, but like I need to find the right time. But yeah, I can't say exactly which gig posters for the time being. And like I'm reticent to recommend doing that because I will say that like I've got a couple of things coming out in December, but like it's kind of like the timing, it's kind of like pushing it kind of close to like if you want to get that for Christmas, I don't know if I would recommend that.
Gotcha. Well, we've done IOUs in the past where we've pre-ordered something. And in the card, it says you will be receiving this at some point in time when the shipping happens. So I wouldn't have anyone dissuade you for shopping in your space. But
yeah, and I would say to the fans listening, if you're not familiar with Miles' work, well, first of all, I'm not sure if you've been maybe on an island or in like Castaway with like a volleyball or something, but check out his work on his website and on Instagram. And for those who are tried and true Miles Tsang fans, know that there are some really cool items available in the shop right now. Like as I sit here and scroll, I feel myself getting into trouble and my wallet's starting to hurt. But that's a good thing to support incredible work by incredible artists like Miles.
Yeah.
So check it out and find something for yourself or for a loved one for the holidays.
And I do
Please
have one
do.
little question that we kind of been noodling on to ask some artists. You had mentioned earlier that you're also a fan of other artists in the industry, in the space. Just out of curiosity, is there one piece or an artist that you're just like, how do they do what they do right now? Is there a piece that's come out recently that you were like, damn, I wish I did that?
Oh my gosh. There's like, it's funny, like when you mentioned like the adrenaline effect that you get when you like see that I've like dropped something, I definitely feel that with like a bunch of artists too. Sometimes from I want to get this perspective, but more often it's like, oh my God, this bangs so hard. Oh, okay. I got to step up,
Yeah.
And like I feel that like all the time. I don't know. It's hard to pick one. Because like again, like I've got like not the best recall. Like I'm gonna just remember more recent things, and I'm gonna be betraying favorites of the past and such. But I will say that like people who currently have stood out to me in the landscape that are like putting out work pretty recently, like. I really like Max Loafer's work. I can't like exactly pick out one or the other because he just like shoots them out at such a crazy clip, and they're all great. He's a geek poster artist based out of Germany.
Yeah.
I think that who really blends like symbolic imagery, and surreal imagery really really well. Like I like his rendering style that seems to be very flexible. He can draw kind of anything, and his ideas are just like really cool. Like they're either really smart or they're really cool, or both. And like, I just really like what I see out of him. Also got a shout out. What's her name? Art of Hamzat, I think is her name. Just because I don't see that many, like, frankly, a lot of like women artists in the scene, and I wish that there were more. But just because like I feel like different people bring different experiences and different perspectives, and you're going to get different cool art from that. I also feel like something that I bring that like I don't know if people like think about that much is like I'm a Chinese like Canadian dude. Like I like different things than a lot of other people like I don't just like these these things that are from like the West or whatever. Like I love anime, I love manga, I love art history, I love like movies and world cinema. Like I like all kinds of things that like, even if they're not like one to one, like I'm not like, oh, here's this reference directly to this. Like it's all like, you're an art historian, right? Like it's like Francis Bacon. Like he had like a million influences that he just like ground up into a fine powder and just mixed it into the paste of his mind, and then he would mark that down on canvas as like a mark of his imagination. And and we're just there, like looking at his crucifixions, just like, how did you even get there?
Right.
And like, I like to think that like other artists are doing stuff like that too. So again, more artists, more people from different places. I just like to see that,
That's what we need more of.
Well said. Yeah.
Absolutely. More well said. And to be able to, I mean, my pocketbook, my bank account might not be super thrilled about it, but it is like that. It's the tangible thing that I can have, that, whether it is I was at the show and I'm bringing home my memento that's now on my walls, or it is an artist that we absolutely adore. Knowing, like, Mike and I are like, Miles Tsang does anything for Dave Matthews Band, whether we were there or not, it has to be in our house, because his OCD won't allow him to not be a full like Pokemon, like gotta catch them all collector.
It will not.
And so we hold those things, really like close to our hearts, because it means something. It's important to us. And our kids, they have posters in their rooms. They get to pick like whatever we bring home. Like our daughter sometimes is like, oh my God, I love that one. I have to have this one. And, our son has more of a penchant. He loves like a little bit more like heavy metal band stuff. And so he picks up some of the stuff that, again, we've got along our ways.
Pearl Jam poster here and there.
Yeah. So, it's pretty cool to be able to see their love for it. And I do hope that maybe our desires and their kind of love for the tactical and the tangible, playing guitars, getting their records, drawing, going outside, putting their feet in the grass. Maybe that's a generational shift that I think we can see again, that more natural revolution.
Well, analog
revolution. I'm waiting for the moment the kids, like our daughter asked us, she said she got something from Taylor Swift and it was like a box set and it came with a CD, and she's like, what's a CD? And I was like, well, it's the thing that came after records.
Miles said before he feels old, we just topped it.
And she's like, well, can we get a CD? Can we? Yeah. Right. Now she wants to get a CD player. And I was like, yeah, we got you a record player.
Right. To eBay we go, because where do you even buy a CD player anymore, right?
So around and around and around we go when it comes to the cycles of things. But I think at the end of the day, if we all just return back to the real, the here and the now, what we can touch, what we can feel, the energy that gets exchanged from it, I think that's the best. I think that's the best place that we can continue to like place our better days.
Well, Miles, we're a little bit over an hour here. Oh,
wait,
go ahead.
Before we do that, though, I do want to go on like a little bit of a rant, because like we didn't get into like certain specific posters, but you mentioned like the DMV Noblesville poster, and I will say that like that one has like some special meaning to me that like I would like to have a little ramble about.
Absolutely.
Before we go. But yeah, so like I mentioned that 2025 this year has been like, in particular, I've been trying to inject my pieces with a little bit more personal meaning. And that one in particular is a little bit more loaded than like the other ones on a personal level. And that is because, as it says in the description, I think I wrote about it a little bit in the caption, but like that, it's not called Deer Creek anymore, right? It's called something else. I forget.
Ruoff Music Center.
Yeah, Ruoff Music Center. And it's just like, oh, like here, like we had the Molson Canadian Amphitheater recently. It's been renamed to the Budweiser Stage. Like I don't know how many of those there are on the continent now. And then I think it's being rebranded as Rogers thing, because Rogers owns everything in Canada. And it's just like all these corporate entities that are like, reinstating things. And it's like, I get it, these things happen, but also there is something to kind of keeping certain memories kind of alive, And I'm not saying that to be like super, to apply an air of conservatism to everything, but like, I just think that there is something to that a little bit when it comes to like nostalgia and the experiences that we kind of have. And yeah, so many people I've noticed when I did research for that gig in particular were like, it's Deer Creek. That's Deer Creek. Is Deer Creek. And randomly, again, this is not something like for some reason that like locked into this, or that reminded me of this piece that I have, or this photograph that I have in my morgue file, like my random folder of images that I think are interesting, of this deer, this like baby deer that's cradled inside of like this artificial dead deer that's been shot down for target practice. And like, I just thought that there was something so melancholy and tragic about that image. And that inspired me because it made me just, there was just something sad about that. And this has been a year of a lot of change, right? Like politically, societally, like, and even me personally, like I've gone through plenty of things, right? And so I've been going through periods of like what my therapist says, like pre-grieving and like grieving certain things that have changed. And so by me kind of recreating that deer being held by that like woman who was kind of standing for me low-key, it's kind of like, it's in my mind, that's like me kind of, you know, cradling the manifestation of these memories that I have. You know, it's kind of me, you know, just recognizing that things will eventually flow away, will fade away, but I can hold them and I can enjoy them while they're here. And yeah, like I felt that way because at the time my cat had been over 13 years old and she just passed away this past late September. And I'm still not really over it, you know, because like I've had her for over 13 years, you know?
Yeah.
And like, yeah. And so like that's kind of me and my cat, low key.
That's beautiful, man. I read about your cat, and in all sincerity, my deepest condolences, because I think you may have heard our little nuggets running around here. We have two Shih Tzus, Bear, was told to us that he'd be a maximum of 10 pounds, and he's a solid 22-pound heifer now, and Ghost, who's this little white fluff ball. But they were COVID pups. We bought them, acquired them, adopted them, however you say it, during COVID, but it was largely in response to the loss of our dog that was our first dog together, Gus, who we had had for almost 17 years. And that really does leave a hole. And there's this beautiful imagery of the pet waiting for you at the Rainbow Bridge that I'm sure you've seen. And I just think it's a lovely sentiment. But the fact that we as humans sort of exist on this plane of a lifespan of, you know, call it ballpark 80 to 100 years or whatnot, if you're lucky. And our pets exist on this different sort of timeline of, you know, much fewer. It just makes it really hard for us to part when they go. But that's I think, a beautiful tribute to your companion, and knowing that this piece is reflective of that, I think, man, that's really special.
Like at the time, she wasn't like sick or anything at the time that I knew. I just kind of could feel it, you know, because she was like 13 at the time. And like, you know, like at that age, like every year is a blessing, you know? And so for some time I'd been kind of anticipating it, you know? And so that's kind of like the meaning of that piece of just kind of holding on and remembering things that were, and just kind of, you know, just kind of like holding them while you have them, and just kind of knowingly, just kind of knowing that, and not holding on too tight, you know, not pushing anything away, just like being there, you know, in that moment, right? And like, that's kind of what that piece is sort of about. So just wanted to put that out there.
Well, like, I'm really glad that we got to talk about that.
Yeah, just, you know, change is constant. It's the only thing, really, right? Cliche, but it's true. So as I said in that post that you read, you know, just want to say to everybody, you know, hold your pets close, hold your loved ones close, and just like, things are crazy, but just do as best you can, look out for each other and take care of each other.
I love that.
It's a perfect way to honor the love that they give us 100%. You know, they show up into our world to give us the love. We hopefully can reciprocate it as much as we can with them. And that's all that they know. And I think that this is just such a beautiful thing. I see this piece and I think of the Dave Matthews song, One Sweet World. And there's a lyric in there that talks about like, lay down in our mother's arms, for there we can rest safely. And I think about that. I think about the story with your sweet pet and how meaningful those.
Her name was Nona. Rest
Nona.
in power.
Rest in
Nona.
power, Nona, and how their foot. It's like that. They leave the footprints on our hearts, forever. And I think that is really special to hold those, close to us that we love, to live in the moment, to search for those moments of joy and truth. I think that is something that we all need to chase more of.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Well, Miles, we are so thrilled to have been able to kind of take such a beautiful journey in this conversation together. I feel like we could chat for a long time, but for our listeners out there, please check out Miles's work. If you're not following him already on social media, please give him a follow at Miles Tsang. And thank you so much for taking the time and the energy and bringing your heart to our conversation today. This was beyond. I woke up this morning, actually, I said to Mike, I was like, we get to talk to Miles Tsang today. And he was like, oh my God, we get all day.
It was a crazy day around here.
So we really are so grateful. And we hope that this is maybe the first. You're always welcome to come and chat with us, but hope that this is the beginning of many more conversations.
Yeah, this was fun. And like, we didn't even, like I said, touch on like half the things that I was like prepared to maybe talk about. So like, all good. There's definitely plenty more just now, and there will be more in future, I'm sure. So yeah, like we'll
3.0. Well, Miles, thank you so much for joining Best of the Tour podcast. And we look forward to seeing what else you have coming out end of 2025. And hopefully can be waiting in some poster lines for some of your work in 26.
Thank you so much, Mike and Erica. I really appreciate you guys, putting on these podcasts and giving us artists like another arena to express ourselves. That's important. That's important too. So appreciate that. And thank you so much for all the kind words and all the boosting. Like it's just sincerely appreciated.
Awesome.
Pleasure's all ours. Thanks so much, Miles.
All right, Best of the Tour listeners, it's time for the Tour Tracker.
Your guide to the shows you don't want to miss.
A band that has stood the test of time and needs no introduction is Sublime. Check them out. They will be on tour starting December 10th, 2025 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The tour is going to run well into the spring with lots of notable dates, including a 2-night stand at Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado, April 17 and 18, 2026. Check out SublimeLBC.com for all the tour dates.
I am always blown away by the incredible posters that Queens of the Stone Age have while they're on tour. If you want to go check out Queens of the Stone Age, see where you can get a cool poster, they're going to be kicking off a 2026 tour with System of a Down over in the UK. And when back in the United States, they're going to be with the Foo Fighters starting August 2026. If you want to go check out where you can see Queens of the Stone Age on tour next year, go to QOTSA.com/tour/ to go get tickets. And that's your tour tracker for this episode.
Have fun out there, and we'll see you on tour.
Best of the Tour is presented by Invisible Industries. Find us at www.bestofthettour.com and on all major streaming platforms, including Spotify and Apple Music. You can also catch Erica and Mike on their other podcast, Posters in Every Direction, streaming wherever you stream your podcasts from. A big thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time. If you're digging the stories that Erica and I are bringing you, and if you'd like to keep these podcasts going, please consider tipping us in the tip jar at buymeacoffee.com/bestofthettour. That's BUYMEA coffee.com/bestofthettour to support the podcast. Thanks, y'all.
Are you looking for some ways to get inspired and make some creative magic happen? Then you need to go stock up on art supplies. Head on over to bestofthettour.com and hit our Blick affiliate link. It's the same price, supports the show. Go check it out.
If you're like us, you love supporting the independent artists who make the art for the posters we love. So if you're looking for a new poster, look no further than shop.invisibleindustries.com. You can find their print collections, including art prints, limited edition prints, remarks, original works, and much, much more.
So go on over to shop.invisibleindustries.com to go check out what they've got in store.